Hey, my name is Anthony Romano, and I'm going to tell you in this video some 1 meal a day tips that you should realistically be using if you're even considering doing OMAD. So, what are the best OMAD tips? Well, I'm going to throw them at you right now. So if you're doing 1 meal a day, or if you're thinking about it, chances are you're already informed on the benefits, why you might want to do it, how it can, positively influence your digestive system, take some stress off of your body having to digest things. You get more energy as a result of having to digest less food. And also, if you take care of your gut for the first 50 years of your life, you're set for the next 50 is one of the phrases they throw out. And OMAD has a lot of metabolic benefits, but I'm not going to get into them. That's not the topic of this video. That's not the subject of this video. This video is on ways to refine the process and make it better. So my first tip is, number one, to use a digestive enzyme. Okay, so one of the ones I use is very powerful. It's this GNC super enzyme. Okay, this is like 30 bucks or so Canadian, okay? And it just has a load of the enzymes you would want, okay? There's another one I have on my description called METABOLIC, and it's from a guy called Wade Lightheart. And I know he sounds like a freaking video game character, but he's just truly a fascinating guy. And I got into some of his work because if you use a proper enzyme, it can maximize, of course, not only your digestion and how you feel, but it can maximize the absorption of amino acids in your bloodstream. So you're getting more out of the proteins you actually eat, and it's enhancing the bioavailability of the nutrients in the food. And additionally, some of the enzymes that are required to break down fat, like lipase, will eventually also help your body to break down its own fat. Your body needs lipase to break down fat. So essentially, using an enzyme is imperative to me if you're doing OMAD. Whenever I have a day where I am, eating one meal, or, I'm simply eating a small eating window, I always use enzymes, okay? So that's a huge tip right off the start. You have to use this. It will maximize your, amino acid and essential fatty acid bioavailability, and not to mention nutrient bioavailability in terms of vitamins that you're actually absorbing in the foods. Okay, so that's the first tip. Now, the second tip is, so first of all, a little bonus tip there is, when you're eating a protein-dense meal, have an enzyme, okay? No matter what your goal is, or no matter what your plan, overarching structure is, okay? The second tip is, try to do OMAD. Try to turn it into 2 meals within, a 2 or 3 hour eating window. Because realistically, if you're eating 1 meal a day, of course, like I said, you can have an enzyme to reduce digestive stress, but having everything crammed into 1 meal in your stomach can be troublesome for your digestive system. Realistically, having like a 4 hour eating window or less would be more optimal if you have, 1 meal and then another one crammed within 3 hours or 2 hours. That's a better way to kind of parse out the actual food you're eating, especially if you're doing what I'm about to say for tip number 3, which is mixing macros. Okay, mixing macros is generally always going to lead to problems, and I'm about to drop a tip on you right now that is going to change the way you eat food forever if you haven't already implemented this. So whenever you mix carbohydrates and protein together in the same meal, you're going to have some form of digestion upset, okay? And you're also going to have a lack of bioavailability of, more often, the protein. Here's why. Protein needs to digest in an acidic environment. The second you start eating protein, your body's going to release enzymes and more hydrochloric acid to break down the actual amino acids, and what will eventually distribute them through your bloodstream. But it's going to start breaking down that protein with the acid. And whenever you have carbohydrates, they don't digest in an acidic environment. They actually digest in a more alkaline environment. So when you have both of these being digested at once, a huge amount of potatoes and a large amount of steak, you're going to have basically something isn't going to be digested as efficiently. So if you have the protein first, you got more acids going on. And if you have the carbs first, you're going to have more alkalinity going on. So let's say you have, the carbs first, right? Your stomach is primarily an alkaline environment at this point, and any protein you have at this point isn't going to be fully digested because there's not enough acid. So it's going to pass through your intestinal tract, and some of it is probably going to ferment in your gut. Some of it is going to be essentially rotting in your stomach. That's what it does when it's undigested. That's what undigested food does. And that's why people get gas. That's why people will fart later, okay? That's literally the cause of fart is fermentation of foods in your digestive tract. So when you have a combo of protein and carbs in the same meal, first of all, the first way to mitigate this, which is not really the most optimal way, enzymes, right? Take an enzyme that's going to reduce the stress and hopefully supply your stomach with the enzymes to break down both those foods, because it probably only produced primarily one at first. Okay, so that's the first tip, but the real best way to avoid this is do this sort of 2MAD structure. If you're somebody who's if you're not eating carbs, then beautiful, you're set, because then from there, you got just only protein and fat, which digest very well together. Fat generally digests well with everything. It simply is like, it's just pouring more oil. It can go with the flow. It can go with anything, basically. And when you have protein and carbs, that's where the problems come. So essentially, if you're doing a ketogenic diet, great, beautiful, and you're not going to see any digestive stress with this. That's why people say they don't have as much gas with keto unless they have a large amount of veggies or something, fibers, carbs. But when we're looking at the environment of people who do want to eat carbs on their OMAD plan, right? Instead of making the other tip, just go keto and you'll avoid this problem. No, I'm going to explain to you why you can basically work around it by doing this sort of 2MAD model. So all that really matters is that you're metabolically only in the eating window of a certain period of time. If you're doing one meal a day, it was probably going to take you longer than an hour to eat your daily amount of food anyways. So if you're going to have 2 hours maybe of eating, in the first hour you could have a more carb-intensive meal, and the second hour you could have more protein-intensive meal. Of course, I believe having the protein-intensive meal first would be more optimal, but you get the point. You would want this sort of one digestive environment and then the other in the same OMAD, day. So keep in mind, protein digests in an acidic environment, carbs digest in an alkaline environment for the most part, and mixing one or the other, depending on which one you have first, something is going to ferment in your gut, whether it's protein or carb, and then it will cause you gas and misdigestion of food. Now, little last tip I'll say here, if you're somebody who's doing a muscle building plan, there is a great body of evidence of work from Vince Gironda, who I reference all the time because I like referencing the classic generation of bodybuilding and fitness information. And one of the things that Vince Gironda wrote about, of course, was digestive enzymes and also taking extra hydrochloric acid, which you can do, but there are, more considerations involved with that. But one of the things he did reference was not to mix carbs and protein in the same meal. And essentially, you want to do this because, protein is what actually builds. Carbs do not necessarily build. They can refill your glycogen in your muscles. So essentially, if you're doing OMAD and you're trying to build or something, you could have a way easier and smoother time if you simply spread those two out, okay? And also consume an enzyme anyways, perhaps with both of those meals, because you are digesting a lot of food in a short amount of time. So that is basically the summary of OMAD tips, the best OMAD tips you'll find out there. I've been doing one meal a day for a long time, loads of intermittent fasting for a long time, keto dieting for 8+ years, lots of stuff out here, a lot of experience that you don't really find on YouTube. So subscribe to me if that's interesting to you, and follow my Instagram if that's interesting to you, and go to my website, romanoketo.com, if you want help doing this for yourself. So that's it. Thank you for watching. Anthony Romano. Peace.